Hi, everyone. I'm Evelyn Prim, the Communications Coordinator for the City of Montpelier, and I'm here today with Alec Ellsworth, the Parks Director for the city. And Alec is going to run through the proposed FY25 budget for the Parks Department. So we will share the slides and you can take a look. All right, take it away, Alec.
Great. Thanks so much, Evelyn. Hi, everybody. This is a presentation about the Parks and Trees budget, which I will try to make as concise and entertaining as possible for a budget presentation. So this is the agenda for this presentation. Here's a picture of our youth conservation crew at the end of the summer post-flood in front of our park shop. So we'll go on to our org chart. We are a small but mighty department. We have 4 full-time employees. I see 3 of them on the right, and then I make up the 4th one. I'm the parks director and the tree warden, and our staff is split between parks and trees. We're 2.6 parks and 1.4 trees. So one of us lands entirely in the tree department. That's our city arborist. One lands entirely in the parks department. That's Kara, our parks crew leader. And then myself and our park supervisor are split part-time between parks and trees. And I'll explain why that is as we go forward. We also have a couple advisory boards that we work closely with. The Parks Commission, which is a 5-member elected body. They make management plans for parks and advise, or they make the rules for all the different parks throughout town. And then the tree board, which is appointed by city council, and they really help a lot with the downtown trees and the urban treescape. And they advise the city council on tree related matters. And so as the tree warden, I am the staff liaison for that board. And also the staff liaison for the Conservation Commission, which is another advisory board on conservation related matters. We also have seasonal youth conservation corps staff, and we have had traditionally 2 AmeriCorps members who are full-time for 11 months of the year. And so on the right, you see their names. All right, so this is what we're providing for the community this year and other years. On the park side, like I said, that's a little more than half of our crew. We maintain 510 acres of park. That's our 2 large parks, Hubbard Park and the North Branch Park, as well as 6 small parks. So some people may not know about all these other parks, but there's Summer Street Park, there's Blanchard Park right behind City Hall, there's Mill Pond Park, a small park on the river on Elm Street, Stonewall Meadows Park over off of Hebert Road, the new Confluence Park, which is right on the rec path, and then the Peace Park, which is on the far end of the rec path right on the river. And then we also do shared maintenance of the rec path along with the DPW and the rec department. We have done a lot of fundraising and development over the last few years, really tied into economic development and outdoor recreation, trying to capture those benefits for the city, as well as fundraising for projects and programs. So since 2020, we've raised a little over $2 million, which is significantly more than our general fund contribution. So we're an extremely high leverage department. I think we provide a really good value, very small percentage of the city budget, but we really do a lot. We also do seasonal events. So people might know Enchanted Forest, Ice on Fire, Parkapalooza is our summer concert series. And then we have programs. Our biggest ones are the Youth Conservation Corps. So we provide job opportunity, summer youth opportunity for local high school students to work in the field of conservation. So they do all kinds of things throughout the city. A lot of that depends on, what funding we can get and leveraging our city funding. But they've done projects on the bike path in our parks, doing tree work. They work on the feast farm, which I'll tell about in just a second. And then ultimately, they end up doing whatever's required of them, like flood relief or whatever happens. Our other big program is the Feast Farm, and that is a program that's collaborative with the Montpelier Senior Activity Center. It's a community farm that grows food for the Meals on Wheels program and the food pantry, the middle school backpack program, and a few other small sources, including a low income farm stand that the senior center runs. And so that's an entirely grant funded program that we started a few years ago. It's been really successful. Unfortunately, it was, basically the site where we were farming was a complete loss in the July flood at Home Farm Way. And so we were looking at relocating that up to the Country Club Road site moving forward. So that program is grant funded and supported by our AmeriCorps members too. On the tree side, we're 1.4 FTEs. You might be asking yourself, why are we parks and trees? Tree work is, I think most people think of it as a public works service, and in many towns it is. People basically do tree work three different ways. In small towns where they don't have a lot of parks, they the road crews do the tree work. In bigger places like Burlington, for example, they have a whole tree department that has 5 full-time arborists and a whole seasonal staff for trees. And then we fall in that in-between zone like we do in so many other places, where we have parks and we also have a tree program. And so it makes sense for us to have our tree program live under our parks, because we have so much tree need in our forested parks. And it's a very high skill job. And so it's good to have all of that work basically housed under one roof. And other towns that do like similarly, Rutland does it very similar. They have a huge town forest and also sort of an urban landscape like we do in places. So they have a couple of arborists that live under their parks department. So the services that we provide are, we do rapid response to trees and storm damage or, various elevated risk situations. We collaborate with the DPW a lot on simple things like, before a paving project, we'll go and make sure that the branches are raised to a certain height for all the equipment before the work begins. Or every year we'll do go around to make sure the sidewalk clearance for the plows is adequate, kind of on demand. We're also currently working on mitigating the effect of emerald ash borer in the city, removing 700 plus ash trees within the right of way. For those who aren't familiar, basically the city owns a right of way on all streets. It varies in width, but in general, if you go 25 feet or so from either direction from the middle of the road, the city has maintenance obligations along that right of way. So there are about a few more than 700 trees in that right of way, and we're trying to remove at least 10% a year, and right now more if we can. We also treat some of those high profile trees, like downtown, for example. All of our large trees are ash trees. We have a tree nursery that we maintain in collaboration with the tree board, and we have a low-income firewood program. We try to use the trees that we cut down. We have volunteer groups and other people that split up the wood, and then we provide it. We're an emergency heat provider for Capstone, and we sell firewood at a reduced rate. So there's basically three aspects to tree work, so people understand. One is trees are infrastructure for the city, so they have a useful lifespan. They need maintenance over time. They need pruning, they need weight reduction, they need shaping around various obstacles. So they provide, stormwater retention benefits, air quality benefits, a lot of benefits that are captured by trees, and that requires maintenance. And then the second aspect of it is their aesthetic. So, a lot of the urban tree canopy is important to how a city looks. And if you think about a beautiful tree-lined street, there's a lot of aesthetic value to that. So again, trees are something that it's not a one and done. You kind of plant it and let it go. It's a thing you have to go back and touch it and prune it and make sure that it's thriving, and protect it from various, hazards that impact trees. And then the third aspect is, trees, like all of our other infrastructure, they can also they're just a liability that we need to take care of and take into account. So we have a, pruning program, a 3-year rotational pruning program. We're ideally moving throughout the city in zones over 3 years to make sure that we get eyes and potentially, hands and saws on each important tree throughout the city. And there's a customer service element to it as well. Working with residents to maintain their trees that they own but which are in the city right away, and then our interaction with our other projects. So overall, I would say we have a really expert staff, extremely skilled people who have a huge range of skills. Over the years when we bring new people on, it does take us a really long time to train people, because we cover so much territory, and B, we do so many different things that it really takes a long time to get up to speed. And we work quite closely with these boards and commissions from the last slide. Okay, moving forward. So we're looking at, very significant cuts to the parks budget specifically this year. The proposed budget removes both of our AmeriCorps members, which is, basically an effective loss of 2 full-time employees, as well as our city funding to the Youth Conservation Corps program. So overall, that's a little more than a 40% reduction to our available labor force. We're down to our 4 full-time employees, and then whatever other grant-funded projects that we can implement. The impacts are going to be sort of. Oh, and then one more thing before I go into impacts is the capital funding. I think every department is constrained in this way, but that covers our equipment, and then also our projects, our big maintenance and improvement projects. So we're going on a couple years of a zeroed out equipment budget, which just is, I'm sure every department is harping on this need, but yeah, it really punts the needs down the road and makes it all pile up. And without working equipment, that's a really big efficiency loss to every department. So I would say that's a really big, significant issue for us, just like it is for all departments. So our impacts are basically going to be split across 3 different areas. Our projects, with such a huge loss of labor, it's going to be very difficult to implement new projects, and we'll be seeing a significant slowdown, or in some cases dropping altogether, of new projects or planned projects. With no capital funding, all of our big projects are going to be either grant funded or done in-house. Traditionally, we've done a lot of projects in-house, but yeah, losing so much labor, we're going to have to move away from projects and really focus on maintenance. Some examples of how we've done projects in the past are like the universally accessible trail we built in Hubbard Park. It was grant funded, but we got it, basically for a third of the actual cost if the contractor had done it, because our crew did so much tree work in advance. We did all the finishing work. Our crew trucked all of the material, and we were really able to reduce the price of that. So that's been a sort of a classic example of how we do things that's going to have to change moving forward. I think implementing a big project like that, we would have to have it be entirely contractor done, which is just a lot more expensive. Also, like a good example, tree work, it takes 3 people minimum to be on a tree job, usually 4 people. So with four staff and 2 AmeriCorps members, that gives us good flexibility to, for example, have a tree crew and another crew that's doing another thing. But with only 4 people, we're looking at sort of just doing one thing at a time, instead of 2. Other examples of projects are like the Parks Commission has management plans for Hubbard and North Branch Park. There's a list of 70 action items, ranging in size from, a new fence in a certain place to a huge new bridge in another place. And those would sort of be the first things to be put on the back burner, because we just have to focus on basically, using the staff that we have to maintain what we have instead of developing these plans. Similarly, for every park, that's just Hubbard and North Branch, but Blanchard Park also has a management plan, and they're working through each of the parks. So those action items are going to be, delayed or tabled. Our focus is going to be on maintenance instead of projects with a reduced staff. The second impact is going to be on programs. Our Youth Conservation Corps program has been a really wonderful thing to implement projects and maintenance throughout the city. And the city portion has traditionally, or over the last couple of years, paid for about half or a little bit less than the total funding of the program. Some summers it's been as much as $100,000. More than half of which has been grant funded. And so the benefit of the city funding is it's flexible, and we can put it to our highest use versus a grant funded program, which is, you do what they want you to do instead of what you want you to do. And then also losing our 2 AmeriCorps members is going to significantly impact our ability to manage that program, to supervise it. Like I said, it takes so long to learn to, everything that we do. And so it's hard to just bring on a seasonal staff and expect them to lead an AmeriCorps crew, lead a youth conservation crew, know how to build trails, know how to work all the equipment, know how to build stone walls. A lot of stuff that crew would do is high skill and takes time to learn. And then our Feast Farm program, there's going to be, a significant impact on that. Not having AmeriCorps to support it. They've traditionally provided a lot of support in the shoulder seasons before we bring on a farm manager who sort of runs the program for the summer. And so we'll do our best to keep that program going. in a grant capacity. But yeah, looking at a lot of uncertainty there. And then lastly, on the development fundraising side, with our current staff set up the way it is, it's given basically empowered a director, myself, to go out and chase down money for projects, for Youth Conservation Corps, for economic development. We've really been on a roll the last few years, I think, bringing in a lot of additional dollars to the city through my role. And like I've been saying, sort of the reduced staffing structure just leads to a situation where I'm going to get pulled into a lot of field work and not have as much time for that kind of development stuff. This is just a couple of graphics pulled from the annual report from last year. On the right, you'll see down in the bottom, parks, trees, conservation at 2.7% of the budget. And on the left, this is pre-reappraisal. So the numbers are different for this annual report, but yeah, looks like $117 for the average residence for everything we provide. So like I said, I think we provide a really good value to the city and extremely high leverage department. A few years ago in 2021, we did a big survey about parks and outdoor recreation in Montpelier. And one of the questions we asked people was, if you were in charge of investment in parks, what are your priorities? And so I know our staff and the Parks Commission has, there's a lot of good data in that survey, and I just thought this was an opportunity to raise awareness about the survey to the public, and also just to show where respondents place their priorities. This was a pretty robust survey. We had multiple individual mailings to each house, to each residence in Montpelier, and reached people through a lot of ways. So you could see we got more than 1,100 responses on this question, and people's priorities in terms of how they'd like to see investment in parks and open spaces. You can see the top three there: protecting open space, investing in upgraded amenities, building more trails, and maintenance is down at number 4. So I think it just shows we do a pretty good job at maintenance, and that's what we'll be focusing on. The top 3 things fall more into priorities that are supported with capital improvement budget and the ability to do fundraising and development that we've had. That is probably going to be the first thing to peel away here. Okay, so this is our strategic plan. Just pulled the high level goals. We interact with a bunch of them, but these are the 3 key ones I would say. Advancing the economy to improve community prosperity. If you've heard my presentation on outdoor recreation and economic development before, you'll know that basically Montpelier, there's a lot of towns in Vermont that have great trails, and then there's a lot of towns in Vermont that have great downtowns. There's very few towns that have great trail systems that are seamlessly connected to a great downtown. And so Montpelier is really positioned well to capitalize on that resource that we have, and that comes through in terms of people visiting the town to recreate outdoors, people working here because it's a great place to work. You can jump out of the State House and go, trail right behind the building to a whole network of multi-use trails, making it a livable older community with things like our flat bike path or universally accessible trails. So there's a lot of benefits that come that people don't traditionally think of as in the parks and recreation world, but people are flooding to Vermont for outdoor recreation, and there are communities that are capturing that influx of people and those that aren't. And so we're trying to position ourselves to be not just capturing it, but one of the leading communities to really pull people in Vermont. Plan for climate change, practice good environmental stewardship. A lot of that has to do with how we manage our parkland. Also, a lot of our parks are huge passive stormwater retention infrastructure. If you think about the amount of money it would cost to store the amount of water in Hubbard Park in all the wetlands, it would be insurmountable. So we're lucky to have our conserved lands, and our zoning protects that as well. And the way we manage those conserved lands has a big impact on our environmental stewardship. And then building and maintaining sustainable infrastructure. I think our tree program really falls into this, especially with stormwater. And a good example is like when we have been constructing new tree wells downtown, we're constructing them such that they capture all of the stormwater from sidewalks along the entire strip that the tree and on either side of it is planted by sloping the sidewalks, putting effective drainage, having under sidewalk places where the water can drain and also benefit the trees. And so there's a lot that we do, especially on the tree side, to build and maintain sustainable infrastructure. All right, so that's the end of the Parks and Trees budget presentation. This is a timeline that you're probably familiar with, January 25th council decision for the budget. If anyone has questions or wants to know more information, I'm happy to be available at that email address, and our budget is also on the city website on the finance page. And thanks a lot for watching this if you made it to the end, and take care.
Great. Thank you so much, Alec.